At the age of 22, I've made more than $500,000 in business with no business education, and I also started out with no money. Here's how I did it. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you an exclusive look into my entrepreneurial and business journey. Most of you will know me as a trader and the owner and founder of KB Trading. And for those of you who don't know me, I've been involved in the financial markets since 2015. And today I've mentored thousands of traders all over the world. I personally manage 6 figures of live capital. And I've had the pleasure of teaching some of the industry's best traders. My company is taught in universities and run multiple trading floors in Scotland as well. And it's been a phenomenal journey. But over the past sort of 5 years, aside from trading, I've also successfully run multiple businesses, invented industry-shaping products in other industries, had some crazy ups and downs, and learned a load of lessons as well. And I thought I would share some of that with you because I've never really spoken about it on the channel. Now, a couple of little disclaimers here. First and foremost, how much my companies have made is not directly reflective of how much I have made from my companies. I pay myself an exceptionally small wage from KB Trading. I take very, very little money out of the company. I pretty much take as little as is possible for me to take from the company because I would rather have the money in the company to be able to buy things, to be able to reinvest into the company. And the second little disclaimer that I want to put in here is, for many people, $500,000 probably doesn't seem like anything to write home about, doesn't seem like a huge figure or anything like that. You know, especially when in trading, we're dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars in trading accounts and funding and all that kind of stuff, private investment, whatever it may be. We are used to seeing very, very big numbers, sometimes even into the 7 figures when we're talking about trading. So $500,000 in business may not seem like a lot, but something I want you to remember is I have no prior business education. When I started out my first company, I was in college and had literally no money in my bank account. I didn't have a business mentor or investors or anything like that. I started everything from the ground up. And, you know, in a way, I'm glad I'm not sitting here going, how I made 10 million in business, because I think $500,000 is something that's very, very achievable for many of you. If you're privileged like I am, you know, you're living in the first world, you have a relatively stable environment round about you. That is a goal that you could absolutely achieve. If I can do it, you can absolutely do it too. I'm not the smartest, I'm not the wisest, you know, I'm not the most resourceful or, you know, the most talented, but just with hard work combined with a passion for the industries I was operating in allowed me to run multiple successful businesses. So let's roll back the clock to 2015 when I opened my first brokerage account. I was actually trading in high school, trading stocks through an app on my phone, Trading 212. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't know what I was doing.
I don't know what I'm doing.
I was purely guessing, just buying and selling things, waiting for them to go into profit and then closing them and thinking that was a legend. So I actually opened my first brokerage account in 2015 after, you know, playing a bit on this demo account and thinking that I was doing really well. I wanted to open a live account. Didn't really go very far with that. And my trading and my interest in trading, my study of the markets and that kind of thing would always remain in the background until 2018, where I actually dedicated some serious time and study to the markets. And that's really where my professional trading career began, was like 2018. But I still had that involvement in the background for pretty much 3 years at that point. Now, in 2016, I left school and joined college. Now, I was peer pressured into going to college by mates and by people around me. My family weren't really pressuring me to go to college, but all the people around me, they were smart guys, they were going to be engineers and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, you know, I'd best do something. So I applied for an architecture course at college. Now, the architecture course I was doing was computer aided architecture. So it was like CAD programs. And I really enjoyed that. I was good at using the computer programs. I'm not so skilled as an architect. I don't really have an overly creative mind. I don't really, I can't really visualize things very well. But I was good at using the software. I was good at using Photoshop and all that kind of stuff. So I enjoyed that. Whilst I was at college, I was also playing airsoft in my spare time. I started playing airsoft at the age of about 11 years old. By the time I was 16, I was playing it at a relatively professional standard. For those of you who don't know what airsoft is, it's a bit like paintball, but a lot more realistic. And even within the more realistic airsoft, you have a subculture called milsim, or military simulation. This is what I was into. Milsim guys wear all of the real kit. They set up all of their equipment to be like, the real special forces. All of the operations and missions and objectives and that kind of thing that we do were all set up to simulate or to mimic what the real world guys were doing. So I was very involved in this, and I actually ended up on one of the most recognized teams within the industry. This team used to run all of the milsim events. So through getting selected for that team and passing their selection process, I was very, very well connected. People knew who I was. One of the problems that we had within airsoft was communication. Typically, your military guys and your special forces have very powerful radios with very advanced antenna systems that can, communicate over tens of miles. In airsoft, we're using like cheap Chinese radios that you get on eBay or Amazon, the type of thing that like Paul Blart's using in Mall Cop, right?
Blart, this is Commander James Kent, New Jersey SWAT. We went to high school together. Remember? I set you on fire at the Pancake Festival.
So they weren't like the most high-tech things, but look, they did the job. Now, one of the problems that we experienced was communicating consistently over long distances. And I had noticed that the real-world military guys used something called a whip antenna. The basic premise behind a whip antenna is, it's probably 2 meters long, but it can fold all the way down into a neat little package, and it, it clips onto the top of your radio. If you want to communicate over longer distances, you can unfold it. I had the idea to try and develop my own whip antenna that was capable of being used with the civilian radios that we used. Now, growing up, my dad had always worked construction, so I was very familiar with these yellow metal tape measures, for measuring wood, for measuring concrete, whatever. And so I had the idea to use a tape measure to cut it up, to connect up the antenna connections, wrap it in heat shrink or duct tape or something like that, and I would have my own whip antenna that I could use with my radio. So I tried it out and it worked. I shared this on social media. I had built my own whip antenna, and all of the guys in all of the social media groups I was in went mental. I put up a post and it literally went viral. I just laid out the antenna and took a picture of it on the driveway of my parents' home. I'm like probably 16 at this point. And the post goes viral on some of these, airsoft groups that I'm in. And people were asking me if I could make them one. So I decided to start selling them for £15 per piece, and the orders were flooding in. The demand was growing and growing and growing, and I was taking the payments through PayPal. I decided it was probably time to set up a website. Now, what I was doing at this time was getting my mum to take me to B&Q, which is like a hardware store here in the UK, where I would buy the tape measures, I would take them home, I would break them apart, cut up the metal, sand it down, use a soldering iron to solder in the antenna connections, cover it in heat shrink, and there you go, there's your antenna. And cheap and cheerful, relatively easy to make, selling them for £15 per go. As the demand began to grow for these, I decided that I wanted to refine them and make them a little bit better. So instead of buying the tape measures and breaking them apart, I went directly to the supplier in China who supplied the steel for the tape measures I was using. They were called Win Tape. I contacted them, I spoke to one of their reps and explained what I wanted. And using the architectural programs I had from college, I was able to actually draw a specification sheet for what the metal should be cut like and send that over to them. and they were able to produce me this steel. They actually had a corner set up in their factory for my company to produce the steel for me. So now, instead of paying £3 for a tape measure and getting 3 meters of steel, I was paying effectively 50 pence per meter for the steel, or there and thereabouts. And it was already pre-cut. I didn't have to make any cuts. I didn't have to make any adjustments or modifications. It was cut to the right size. I simply had to solder in the antenna connections. I no longer had to sand all the yellow paint off or anything like that. I was getting the steel directly from the factory before it had the yellow paint or measurements put on. Before it was made into a tape measure, I was getting the steel directly from source. Again, I'm like 16 years old at this point. Now, these orders are just flooding in, and I actually remember a point at the end of 2017 where I checked my bank balance, and I think probably for the first time I had over £1,000 in my bank account. So I remember sending a screenshot to Neve on Facebook Messenger and just going like, look at my bank balance. I've made £1,000 from selling these antennas online, and we were both blown away. That was a real kind of eye-opening moment for me in business, my first real like £1,000 made in business. So we went from there to create a website, and the way I set this up was these antennas were made to order. I developed the antenna further. I ended up having my own branded heat shrink. I ended up having a flexible gooseneck on the antenna so that, it was a bit more movable and flexible. And by this point, the antennas were now selling for £75 a piece, and the demand for them was just insane. I actually ended up sending these out to guys in the US Air Force. I remember sending parcels out to US Air Force bases, loading all these parcels into the back of my Volkswagen Golf that I had at the time, driving it to the post office and sending these out to, Dutch helicopter pilots and, airsoft guys all over the world. And it was just an absolutely crazy time. So the way I had the business set up was I would market for a month, and then on the first day of the next month, I would open up orders, maybe like 50 antennas, and typically they would sell out within 1 or 2 days. I would then halt orders for a month whilst I marketed them and relaunch them again on the first of the following month. So every 2 months I would do a launch, and on launch day I would make anywhere from £5,000 to £8,000, in literally hours. So PayPal eventually shut down my account for suspicious activity. I had to move over to Stripe, so that was a bit of a pain. But there I was. At this stage, I'm now running a business successfully, and I decide it's time to drop out of college and to devote all of my attention to running TCS. I got the antenna designed to a point where it was so simple and easy to make that Neve, who is now my lovely wife, Neve could actually make the antennas. So I would go away for weekends and market my product and test them at these airsoft events, and Neve would be at home making these antennas, and I'd be paying her to do the manufacturing. They were actually that simple to make at this point in time. My plan was to go to college for 2 years and then go to university for 5 years and then get a job as an architect where I'd make £32,000 per year. Within 6 months of leaving college, I was making more than that at the age of 17 years old. Now, the next product I would invent was the adaptive combat vest. This was effectively a body armor vest. I didn't invent the body armor part of it, but simply what's called the plate bags, which is effectively the vest you wear that you put all of your, rifle clips in, you put all of your, different bits of kit. And I came up using Photoshop and the CAD programs I had. I came up with my own design for one of these body armor vests and sent it off to a nylon manufacturer. Me and him went back and forth. I was taking inspiration from things in my environment, like Neve's resistance band in the gym. Took inspiration from that for the side panels to make it, flexible and comfortable. And I brought to market another product I had invented that was, I was responding to a need. I was producing a solution for a problem within the industry that I was operating within, which was airsoft. And the best way to get market research within an industry is to be a customer within that industry. Because if you've been a customer within that industry, you understand what the customer wants, you understand what they need, you understand what they're looking for, what they're looking to spend, you understand what makes them tick. So if you've been the customer and you know what makes them tick, you know how to sell to you, so you know how to sell to other people. And the reception for this adaptive combat vest was absolutely phenomenal. People loved it. I ran it at various events to test it out and to get people's opinions, and it was received very, very well. Now, bringing products to market was a challenge for me because I had no photography education, no videography education, no education in sales and marketing, IT. I didn't even have any education in antenna building or electrical engineering or anything like that. I was really having to work this out as I went along the way. Now, given that I was running this business from the bedroom in my parents' house, I didn't have a workshop. All of the products were built on the floor of my bedroom. And all of the images, I didn't have a photo studio. So I got a piece of plywood, I spray painted it black, and that was my photo studio. I would literally take a picture of it, the product on top of this plywood, and then I would Photoshop in the background and that would go up on my website. Now, one of the next products that I would bring to market was night vision goggles. Yeah, you heard me right, night vision goggles.
Industrial strength night vision goggles.
You know what's amazing? They're not that noticeable on your face.
Right?
Yeah.
Ah!
So again, another problem that we had within Airsoft, most of our events ran throughout the night, and in winter it gets dark very, very quickly here in the UK. So you would spend the majority of the event nearly in the dark, and many guys who had connection were able to get their hands on high quality military grade night vision. And I was able to get my hands on this kind of stuff as well, but the majority of people were not, and they couldn't get stuff at a cost effective price. The night vision unit I used to run, if you were to buy it from the manufacturer in the US, if you were a US citizen, it would cost you about $10,000. Here in the UK and in Europe, you can't just walk into a store and buy these things. However, there is no restriction on building them or obtaining them for yourself. And I managed to find someone selling the image intensifier tubes, which are effectively the elements within the night vision housing that actually amplify ambient light. So it takes a small amount of ambient light and amplifies it, making it bright in your eyes. Now, I found a guy on eBay. He was selling a lot of technology and that kind of thing, a lot of scientific stuff. He was selling these image intensifier tubes, and in all honesty, I don't think he knew what it was that he was selling, but I bought a couple off of him very, very cheap, and I managed to obtain dual tube housing that these intensifier tubes click into, and I was able to build my own night vision unit. Now, once I knew how to build these, I went on a spree of obtaining these parts and building them for myself and selling them anywhere from £3,000 to £4,000 per unit. And I sold a good handful of these. That's right, I was building military grade night vision goggles in the bedroom of my parents' house at 17 years old. If I didn't have photographic evidence of this, you would never believe me, but just let that sink in for a moment. Now, all the while, I'm building Tactical Comm Solutions social media and online presence, and the social media is still there today. You can go and check it out if you like, but I'm building up the social media and things are going really, really well. Now, around this time, my quality of life began to improve dramatically. I'm a teenager, I'm a young kid pretty much, and I'm making good money. So myself and Neve were able to travel to Greece, drive around Santorini on quads and stay in a villa with a pool and all that kind of stuff. We were able to go to Dubai for my birthday, renting Mustangs, flying in hot air balloons, staying in the financial district of Dubai. I mean, it was absolutely surreal. And I was able to treat my mum and my family as well. I remember taking my mum for her birthday, being able to buy her jewelry and that kind of thing. Again, as a teenager, that just felt absolutely surreal. And whilst all this was happening, my passion and my interest in trading hadn't died down. I was still looking at candlestick charts. I was still studying the markets and that kind of thing. So throughout 2018, I was also able to use my architectural skills and the programs that I had got through college to help my dad out with some construction work he was doing. And then towards the end of 2018 and into 2019, I began to wrap up TCS. Effectively, a company in China had started producing antennas very, very similar to mine, and they'd effectively pushed me out the market. You know, I had been there for a year and a half, maybe 2 years, I'd made about £50,000 in that industry, you know, as a teenager. And then this company in China comes along, pretty much replicates what I'm doing, but starts doing it much, much cheaper, and basically pushes me out of the market. So I jumped before I was pushed pretty much. I think, you know, it would have just got slower and slower and slower. I remember turning up at airsoft games and seeing people using these knockoff Chinese antennas and that kind of thing. And, you know, slowly but surely, I kind of lost motivation for it. All this meant was that now, instead of half my time being devoted to trading, I could just devote my full time to trading. And through 2019, that's exactly what I done and came on leaps and bounds in my trading. Now, around this time, I was also running a Telegram chat where people could follow trades. And into 2020, KB Trading had already been putting out much more formal trading information and education, and the quality of service that I was providing was just continually getting better and better. This led to KB being invited to teach in a university at the start of 2020. Now, this was phenomenal for the company because we were finally being recognized as people who had something to say within the trading space. And then around February or March, KB had maybe 30 members. It was maybe making a couple of £1,000s per month, nothing serious. I moved KB Trading into a 2-person office, tiny little shoebox office, you know, in Glasgow. And in all honesty, the company couldn't really afford to pay for the office, but I was fine with that. You know, it was somewhere where myself and Callum could just focus on trading and also run the company as well. So it didn't really matter that the company couldn't really afford to be having an office that expensive. We just wanted to do it. We wanted to have an office. By the time April rolled around, pretty much the entire world went into lockdown.
Let's give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home. If you don't follow the rules, the police will have the powers to enforce them.
And I made the decision that I was going to continue to work from the office, and I was going to make a video document of me going into work in the middle of the pandemic at this historic moment in human history. And it was through me filming my day in the life that KB actually exploded as a company. We went from having 30 members and KB making, you know, maybe a couple of grand a month at a push, to making like over £20,000 in a month. That was absolutely insane. All of a sudden, KB was getting a crazy amount of attention, and we had hundreds of people joining literally, you know, every other day. Now, from there, the demand arose for solid trading education. All these people were in the groups, they could see how I was trading, and they wanted to trade how I was trading. So I put together a PDF course covering all the foundations and all the basics of trading. And that really allowed all these new traders who were joining, it allowed them to really understand what was going on in the markets. Now, from there, I made the promise to all of those early members who had bought the PDF course that I would bring out a video course in future, and they would get that absolutely for free. My passion here was not to make money. My passion here was to make traders and to give back to this phenomenal industry and to build this phenomenal industry. So with that being said, as KB's revenue began to grow and we were hitting, you know, £15,000, £20,000 months, I began to reinvest into the company. I began to buy computers, I began to buy screens, I upgraded our office multiple times. I then brought out that video course and gave it away for free to all the members who had bought our PDF course. Now, the video course took those members to the next level in their trading. And all of a sudden, we were starting to see competent traders within the group who were actually producing consistent results, getting funded through online funding programs like ftmo and that kind of thing, and making consistent steps towards a professional trading career. And that just fueled my motivation so much. So the next goal of ours was to turn KB Trading into a proprietary trading firm. By this time, KB had made hundreds of thousands of pounds through selling online education and that kind of thing. And unlike many other companies operating within this space, I wasn't taking huge chunks of that money out of the company to spend on myself, to buy myself Lambos and, you know, gold watches and go on holidays to the Maldives and all that kind of stuff. The money was staying in the company. I was taking as little as I possibly could and reinvesting the rest. So all of a sudden we were building a pretty significant bank balance, and my desire was then to open a prop firm. So we launched a junior trader program and brought a load of traders in after an interview process. And the kind of direction we went was to try and turn KB Trading into a prop firm. We wanted to buy the best kit. We wanted to have the best traders in the best location. We wanted to build the best environment. Now, fast forward to 2022. KB Trading never did become the physical prop firm that we once desired it would be. The simple truth is there's just too much competition out there in the proprietary trading industry for us to have a serious shot at being a desired prop firm. We would never be able to offer 90-10 profit splits. We would never be able to fund people with 200K straight out of the door. We were looking to start people on small accounts, £5,000-10,000, and have them develop and build a career with us over 10, 15, 20 years. As it turns out, that isn't the desire of most people within this space. And so whilst in 2022, KB Trading never did become a prop firm, it did become a business that has made more than $500,000 in revenue, taught upwards of 2,000 traders from all across the globe, taught in universities, run multiple trading floors, and produced some of the finest traders I have ever seen within this industry. So what can you take away from this video? Well, first and foremost, business was never my primary focus or primary goal. My primary focus and goal was always passion. In airsoft, I wanted to produce the best kit. In trading, I wanted to trade and I wanted to help other people trade as well. Secondly, I never had any formal business education. I've never read a book on business. I've never had a serious business mentor. And I also started my first business with no money. I'm just a guy with lots of good ideas and an obsessive drive to put those into action. But at the end of it all, I need to give glory to God, because let's be serious, let's be real here. I was born into a stable home in a stable first world country with access to the internet, with a phone, with access to education. I'm extremely, extremely privileged. And whilst I didn't have financial handouts at every step of the way, I've had it pretty good. And I certainly feel privileged and blessed to be where I am. And I was privileged and blessed to be where I was as well. If I've managed to succeed in trading and business, you absolutely can too. Now that's all for today's video, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. A little bit of a different style to usual. Please do drop a comment, let me know your thoughts. Any questions you have or anything like that, feel free to hit me up in the comment section as well. But as always, if you did enjoy it, drop it a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one.